another example?
Of why?
Right. Yeah, from the story. Like give you the idea.
Well, if you were to think of like doublethink, if we're going to talk about the chocolate motif, there's always constant talk about how in the Mini Plenty they're saying, our rations for chocolates have been increasing, and we're making more boots than we should be, and it's great. We're just doing great. So, I think doublethink also plays a lot into keeping the people ignorant, because ignorant is strength. And so it's really, I think doublethink is crucial to keeping the people ignorant to their situation and not questioning what they know.
What do you think Orwell's point is behind that? What is he trying to say with that?
What I got from it was definitely to examine your own life, and to try to see things as how they are and not what you think they are.
I think that if you don't question if you don't question the status quo, then whatever the status quo is becomes like a vital part of what your perception of everything is. So you have to question what your own living conditions to be able to perceive other ones correctly, or not correctly, but with without your own lens on. You have to be able to perceive them without your opinion of what a perfect living condition would be. That doesn't really sound understandable.
Not hanging in there. What about you?
Well, I think it's interesting that he kind of portrayed two different ideas of freedom, one with the proles and one with the party members. Because in a way, the party members have a larger freedom of opportunity, but the proles have more freedom of thought. So which one of those is necessarily freer freedom than the other? I don't know.
Yeah, the proles is a good, because they have, the party doesn't surveil them as much as they do the people that live where Winston lives, the party members, but at the same time they're not really afraid of them having their free thought, because they're like animals kind of. They don't really, they're kind of too stupid to think for themselves, so they're not worried that they're going to think for themselves, because they're not really people in general, because they just live that primalistic life, so they don't really they're not really at that advanced stage of intelligence where they actually have free time to think. They're more just trying to fight for survival.
So backing that back out of the story then, because you guys have really good examples. I see that you're going to be talking about symbolism. You talked about the two different, what do we call that when we have two different classes that are being compared to each other? Two different situations. What's the technique? Contrast? Is there another one? Is there a fancier one?
Juxtaposition, is that what
Nicely
you're looking
done.
for?
Yeah. So talk about, if you can, the impact of how that technique reinforces that idea about examination of your own life and what Orwell's trying to do with that. Okay?
He really can't have interactions with women because he can't really have interactions with anybody because everything is considered so abnormal. Just anything that's normal is too normal and therefore not normal to the party. So he could get caught and get in trouble for it.
And I remember there was a part when him and Julia were trying to plan interactions together, and they were worried that, or he was worried that if he sat at the same lunch table as her, that it would be really obvious that there was something abnormal going on between them.
Exactly.
And so I think Winston, it was partly his own decision to have minimal interactions with the opposite sex, but it was also part of the party's psychological control over the people, because they felt they couldn't have these interactions with the opposite sex, or else it might implicate something and they could be arrested or tortured. as a result.
Do you think the party is the reason why Winston looks at women at the beginning as like an object? Do you think that's because of the party, or he was just like that?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of stuck that way because you see when the government has a lot of control over you, you're supposed to think a certain way, and so he looks at Julia and here it says.
Page 15.
Yeah, page 15. He hated her because she was young and pretty and sexless, because he wanted to go to bed with her and would never do so. Because around her sweet supple waist, which seemed to ask you to encircle it with your arm, there was only the Otis scarlet sash, aggressive symbol of chastity. That's not necessarily because he actually feels that way, it's because he's obligated to, because he will never be able to experience what he wants to experience. And that's just kind of the freedom that is taken away from him through the monopoly of the party.
I think another example of that is with Catherine, his wife, because whenever Winston and Catherine have sex, it's because Catherine says that she wants to make more party members. It's not because she actually has feelings for him or she has any love. So that's another example of how the party has influenced the people in the characters in the book, and as a result, like these characters, they've lost like that ability to love or to just to love or to freely like interact with people the way that they want to. And
Really
instead-
display any emotion, actually.
What do you think Orwell's trying to say with that idea of loss? What resonated with you guys?
The idea that the party like controls how they think.
Okay. And that resonated with you?
Oh, I was clarifying.
Got it. So, because you were talking about, sounded like at some point here you guys were talking about what gets lost with this kind of a dominating government. And you were talking about intimate relationships, and you're talking about the purpose behind making children or whatever. What resonated with you guys about the loss, about this kind of government? What gets lost from the people?
I think for me, what I got out of it was that there's a loss of individuality. These people, they aren't free to express themselves or their own desires. Instead, they think that their own desires are theirs, but they're actually the desires of the party. So Catherine thinks that she should have sex to make party members, and that may or may not be her own decisions and desires, but I feel that because there is the party in control, they have complete control, like physically and psychologically, and so they spread like this venom almost to their members, and so they end up thinking exactly like the party. And I feel like that's what would happen. Orwell's trying to get that, like, he's trying to get at the idea that if there is a totalitarian party, then people will start to lose their own individuality and their own ability to express like their own ideas, and everyone will take on like the ideas of the party.
Yeah, I think that there's basically things that separate us humans from animals. That's basically our emotions and our ability to communicate with others and communicate those emotions. But with the party that in this book takes away all those emotions and your freedom to do what you choose to do, you're kind of like an animal just following what you need to do to survive. You go work a little bit for the party, then you go home, you go do that hatred thing and look at the screen and yell because you're forced to. And if you don't yell loud enough, then you get killed. Or if you yell too loud, then you get killed too. It's just you have to follow certain guidelines that really don't make you as human as you should be. When you're just being controlled by others, you're losing your humanity, I guess.
Okay.
Which is why it was interesting. I can't remember what page it's on, but Winston was talking about the proles and how they're humans and we aren't, is what he said. and it's because the proles, they have this almost like primitive way of expressing emotions that the party members aren't able to do. And so Winston says that, you know, they're humans because they express their own emotions. So I thought that was really interesting.
When I used to think about like how the future would turn out, I used to think like just robots everywhere, like taking over. You know how that's kind of like a moment in time where everybody thought that, and that I feel like that's basically what's happening here, or at least like what Orwell maybe thought about. But because he was writing this obviously before 1984, and since he's writing about the future, he probably was like thinking maybe perhaps like everybody was going to turn into robots. And obviously he didn't exactly say that, but it's kind of like implied since everybody is the same, like acts the same and thinks the same. And
Maybe that's his concern.
yeah.
Okay. Where are you guys heading next in your conversation?
We were initially discussing Winston's perspective of women changing throughout the novel. Our next question is, what impact does Winston's narrative have on the reader's knowledge?
Okay. Right on. I'll be back. Thank you very much.
Anyway, so I think that the fact that we get a perspective of one of the middle party members, the ones that are affected mainly by, well, they're the ones that are affected most negatively by the party. I think that gives a good insight on what Orwell wants us to know, because obviously there's some evidence that he doesn't want the governments to, well, he thinks that the governments, all forms of government will turn this way, where all the people are just working for the government.
You can say no. It's fine. Okay. I rarely read those kinds of things. You might want to. It's fascinating.
Oh, the essay is in the about the news.
Yeah, at the very end. So if you're at all kind of like, what? It talks very passionately about the power of, if you don't have the words to communicate your thoughts, and do those thoughts actually exist? Oh yeah, we were just talking about that too. Hey, how about that?
I thought it was just like a dictionary kind of. It's more than that. There's actually like writing in it. Okay.
If you had to attach a technique to doublethink, or a device, like what would you try to call that?
Like a literary technique.
Yeah. What was he doing by making that?
The author or the
The author.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's giving a kind of like a tone or some sort of thing like that to the idea of the conformity and to the idea of the party, and it's giving a way for us to kind of see that, because I think we can talk about all these grand ideas and all the symbolism, but unless we have some sort of like concrete evidence of people changing what they do and changing their humanity, and I think that we don't actually get to that. And so I think that's helping us to get past the first kind of layer of that.
Yeah, I think, especially because this is a book that we're reading, the idea of language affecting meaning and importance in life is really powerful. So, like, and not just like spoken language, but written language, like actual words and how they, in the members, they communicate and do all their work in this other language that you can kind of, like reading it, you can kind of guess what they're saying, but really it's just enough off that you can't really understand it.
Okay.
Makes it really powerful.
Do you have an example of a doublethink that really impacted you or caught your attention?
At the end, the 2 + 2 = 4 versus 5, and with the fingers, that whole scene was pretty.
What does that symbolize for you? What did that communicate to you?
Everything is relative. You can be, I guess you can, I mean, you could relate to like many other things in this, that like even what we don't know anything that's true, the past can be changed. We don't know what's true. Anything can change.
I was gonna say that there is no truth, and then earlier Daniel was talking about how it related to TOK and how we know what we know now. It's like, oh, that makes me think that we don't know anything except what we're told, and then what we're told isn't always true, or in the case of the party, it's never true. So it kind of made me think that we just don't know anything.
What do you think Orwell's trying to say with that?
That we can be deceived.
Okay.